New York.
Apple.
Hot dogs.
Dollar.
Hollywood.
Democracy.
Freedom. Rock and roll. Wall Street.
Statue of Liberty.
Los Angeles, California.
McDonald's.
Jeans.
Bubblegum. Video games. Nintendo.
What's so great about America?
Every Saturday night, 7 to 9 p.m., explore American culture and language.
With Master Steve,
Ina MK,
And Hasba Cutie.
tune in to find out about what makes America so great.
The Great American Weekend. Listen exclusively on Radio Van 103.1.
Also, watch us on the Radio Von Facebook page, website, and mobile app.
Good evening, dear listeners of Radio Van 103.1. This is the Great American Weekend with Master Steve, Hasba Cutie, and
Ina MK.
Hello, guys.
Hey.
Hello, how are you?
No,
Hey,
feeling
Ina.
great. How
Yeah?
are you?
Oh.
I missed you all this week.
Oh, I missed you too. You know, it was really, it was an interesting week for me because it was my birthday.
Happy belated birthday.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and it's interesting to tie into our episode's theme this week because I spoke with my mother and gave her thanks for bringing me into this world and giving me life, even though sometimes it sucks.
Sometimes.
A lot of the time, yeah. In the Buddhist sense, life is suffering, and the root of all suffering is desire. But above all, it's the attachment to desire.
And you thanked your mom for that.
Yes, thanks, Mom.
Oh, that's mean. That's horrible.
Thank you for all the diverse emotions that we have in this life.
Yes.
Yes. And tonight's theme is motherhood, Mother's Day, because this Sunday...
Yes, the second Sunday of May, since the presidency of Woodrow Wilson back in the 19-teens, has been Mother's Day in the United States.
And we are going to explore all the history behind this day and also what it's like to be a mother and, of course, a father as well. Why not?
No, we have that next month or something like that.
Okay.
There's a day in America. There's a day for fathers.
We will mention fathers, okay, sometime.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, it's hard to talk about mothers without talking about fathers.
It's true.
Yeah, of course.
Well, we were speaking a little earlier off the air, and you're the Great American Weekend mother. You're also a father, right, Steve? And I don't have kids, and I have my mother and father, and we're kind of like this family in a way.
Yeah.
And you are a future father.
Potentially.
Yeah. So what is motherhood? How would you describe, how would you define motherhood?
Oh, how would I describe it? I mean, I've never experienced motherhood myself, so
And I bet you never will.
I mean, it's still everything is possible.
There are apparently ways to go about that these days.
There are ways. Yeah, I'm not really quite interested in that, but yeah. So I'll ask that question to you, Mrs. Inquisitive.
Okay.
What does it mean to be a mother to you?
Well, first of all, it's a great responsibility because you're raising another human and you want to put all your efforts and all your knowledge and all your emotions to do it in the right way. But
yeah, and what does that mean?
What is that right way?
That's like an eternal question with millions of answers.
Of course. Well, later during the show, I will talk about some points which I think, in my opinion, describe the what makes mom a good mom. So and now I would like to just share a couple of thoughts which I really liked because I was kind of reading and collecting materials during the week. So one of them was, well, before getting to the quotes, A mother is the only woman in the world that will constantly forgive your lies, no matter how big they are. She will still give you that warm smile just minutes after you misbehaved and made her angry as hell. And
That
is
may
true.
be true, but is that necessarily a good idea?
Well, that's the other side of the issue. Mothers leave all their personal needs behind so their children can have everything they need. They will not sleep or eat until you come home and they know you're safe and sound. Mothers will protect their children with the price of their own lives. A mother will do all these things with unconditional love. And she won't stop just because you're 50 years old and live in another country. We often feel like children, really little children, when our parents are around, because no matter what, I think they often forget that we're already grown up people who have their own kids, and they always try to protect us. So you never stop being a child while you have parents.
Yeah. Do you stop being a child even if you don't have your parents?
Well, I think it's a good quality.
Do any of us
stay.
ever really grow up? Especially in this day and age.
I would
Not this guy. Not this guy.
He's the wrong person to ask because we already
I'm
know
the big
answer.
baby of the bunch right here.
Especially men don't, I think.
Whoa. That
Now,
is,
what do you
that's-
mean by that?
Yeah, like, I'm really curious. I'm really curious what you mean by that.
Because, well, what I've noticed is that, and it's a good thing.
Let's
because
define growing up.
Growing up actually is not a good thing, and to stay.
Great, then men are doing the right thing.
Yeah, because
Well,
because
I don't know.
keeping
I
that
think we need to
child-
make a distinction between growing up and growing old. Growing up's not a good thing. Growing old is. Oh no! Wait a second.
Well, maturity.
Did I
I
get
think
that
this.
wrong?
I think it's reversed.
Well, one can still be mature, but have that little child inside that makes you play with your own child, get goofy, understand their needs.
You said have a little child inside, and I'm thinking of Zeus, like eating his children and keeping them in his stomach so that they can't
See,
usurp
this is
the
what
throne.
I'm talking about.
What? That's not childish. Greek mythology is a very serious thing.
Yeah, but that's what you got from what I said.
What? Eating your children and keeping them in your stomach so they can't overthrow you later on?
Yeah, that can be funny if you present it in a funny way. Well, now I would like to remind our listeners that you guys can watch us live right now on www.radiovon.fm, also our official Facebook page, which is Radio Von FM 103.1. And later tonight, we are going to have a guest, a real mother with a capital letter, entrepreneur lady, and a lot more, which we will talk about later during the show. We'll discover.
Yeah, we'll have Nina Hovnanian will join
Hovnanian.
us in the second hour of our show tonight to talk about motherhood and American traditions for Mother's Day, those sorts of things, and about other stuff like what she's doing here in Armenia and so
and how
on
she
and so
ended up
forth.
here.
Yeah.
And also how she's connected to the United States. So stay tuned, guys. This is the Great American Weekend. We're going to go on a short advertisement break, and we'll come back here shortly.
So then I tell the bartender, no, you keep the change.
Guys, I don't get it.
Ina, it's an American thing.
Learn more about American humor on the Great American Weekend.
Welcome back to the Great American Weekend here on Radio Vaughn. I'm Master Steve. We've got Ina MK and Hasva QT here in the studio with us.
Hey guys, how are you?
Hasva, you're getting cuter and cuter day
Man,
after
oh
day.
man, I don't know if I can take this type of harassment in the workplace.
Come on. It was your birthday, okay? We can We can do
Compliment
it.
me. I take a compliment with grace.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm only a mirror reflection of those around me.
Oh, so
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
that's a nice
I like
transition.
that.
A good way of turning compliments around.
How you like that?
That's good.
Them apples, huh? I like that.
Love is in the air in the Great American Weekend Radio Van. And so we're ready for some slang, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that, you know, if any of you have ever seen the abbreviation FTD,
I haven't.
right? You haven't? Oh, okay. And it sometimes, I guess, it's used as a verb now, but what it stands for, it stands for Florist Trans World Delivery. And what this is now it's a website, but it used to be like a phone number, or you used to go into your local flower shop and say, hey, I want to buy some flowers and deliver them to somewhere. Not anywhere in the world, but a lot of different places in the world, or anywhere in the U.S. So you could go to your local florist and order a bouquet of flowers and have it delivered, you know, in thousands of different places.
Surprise delivery.
Yeah, FTD. And so this is a big thing for Mother's Day, because the kind of stereotypical thing to do for Mother's Day is to send your mom flowers. So FTD, and their website actually works here in Armenia. There are other websites that do that now too. One is 1-800-Flowers, but that one's blocked here now.
Why is that?
The
Bad.
Russians.
Okay.
The Russians.
It's the Russians that are working for the
No,
American government.
That's what I think.
Or
I mean,
actually, the American government that is working for Russia.
Another
Okay.
slang word?
you know, soccer mom is a phrase that a lot of people have probably heard, and it
Soccer means
soccer,
football?
yeah,
Yeah,
football.
okay.
Yes,
Yes.
This is the American weekend.
It's an American
Don't
thing.
confuse me.
Okay.
It's not football season, so don't talk about football. That's in the fall. American football. Soccer mom, so football for Armenians and pretty much everybody else in the world except for Americans, right? This refers to a usually suburban mom who spends a lot of time taking their kids around to all of their different activities, especially the very trendy sport for kids these days that is soccer. Right. There are also connotations of the soccer moms being kind of competitive and a little bit pushy and making sure that their kids are into all sorts of activities and are busy all the time.
There's some crude
I wonder if
references
the
to
kids
mothers that
like
I know
it.
of that I won't mention. There's one that's kind of relatively radio safe. It's a Facebook term. It's called MILF. It's a mother I'd like to friend.
Oh,
yeah.
well, okay. All right.
Mother.
I'd like to friend. That's a Facebook term.
Okay.
There's another meaning to that, and we'll just skip over that right now and move on to
Do not Google it.
helicopter mom.
Do not Google that.
I think I
If
heard
you're curious
something.
and not easily offended, hit that up on Google. But
forgive
otherwise,
us.
just let it pass by.
Mothers of the world,
Just
forgive
let
us.
it pass by. A helicopter mom is a term for overprotective mothers.
Yeah.
They kind of hang over their kids like a helicopter and
Always around.
Yeah, always around. They don't let their kids do anything on their
Always
own.
making noise.
Or don't let their kids do anything slightly dangerous. If their kids have any trouble whatsoever, they're right there to just
Pick them
swoop in and help them and
fix
make everything.
everything.
Yes, helicopter mom, overprotective parenting. Rents, and this is one that goes back for a long time. I remember using this one when I was in high school. Rents is kind of a slang term for your parents. It's just shortening the word.
Rents.
Yeah,
Yeah.
rents.
Instead of the parents.
Yeah, instead of
Ah,
the
yeah,
parents,
okay,
just calling them
okay,
the
I
rents.
see.
You know, because shortening words makes them more cool.
It's
Yeah.
true. I remember when I was a kid, we used to have parties like, oh man, we can't have a party at my place because the rents are in town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or what was
The rents
other
are
one?
out of town this weekend.
Or
Party
my
at my
folks.
place.
My folks.
Yeah,
my
well,
folks are here.
See, and I'm getting to that one.
Oh, cool,
Yeah, that's
cool.
another one too. And that one, you know, you can, it's a term for somebody's parents, you know, and I guess you can say like, you know, you go and meet your old friends, your old high school friends, and you say, hey, say hi to the folks for me when you see them, you know, say hi to your parents for me.
And the folk literally means the people, but it's like your folks. So it's
Yeah,
like
your folks,
your people.
I don't. I mean,
Peeps.
folk, folklore, folk tales, that comes from the German Volk, which means people.
The people,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, Volkswagen is
the people's
wagon, the people's car.
Part, yeah.
So Volk, yeah, and how that turns into parents, I don't know, but slang is a strange and unusual thing. There isn't always... Here I
It's
am just
always
abdicating.
weird.
I'm just apologizing for or explaining away the fact that I don't know where that term comes from. Just by saying slang is a weird thing. You just don't know where it comes from
Yeah,
sometimes. There's
it's
no
nebulous.
logical explanation.
It's a foggy origin. You
and
don't know
to
where
cover
it comes
over my
from.
incompetence, right?
You're doing just fine, Steve.
Steven,
You're doing just
you're
fine.
never incompetent, I think.
Steven, you're always intelligent.
Here's another
in my
one.
eyes.
The parental units.
Oh yeah, the parental units.
I have to ask the parental units for permission to do that.
Unit.
Yeah,
That
and
sounds
it kind of
funny.
objectifies them and makes them like sound like they're androids or robots or something. The parental units, as if parents ever have any sort of personality, right? That's what kids think when they're teenagers. My parents have no personality. They're just there
They're
to make
just
my
a
life
unit.
miserable.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just androids that were created to make my life miserable. It's not true, but that's what we.
Isn't it?
That's what kids think sometimes, and other stuff like and then just all of the variations on the word mother.
Mama.
Mommy, moms. Hey, moms. Not like plural moms.
Okay.
Because you get moms and pops. It's not plural. It's
babes,
or babes. But well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
kind of.
yeah, I suppose. Yeah. Mummy, and always the great play on words. Which I think was a Three Stooges movie. My mummy.
The mummy.
Yeah, but I mean, like, confusing the words mommy and mummy. Hey, mummy. Because the Brits have they call their moms mum.
Mum.
M-U-M, right? So
Those wacky Brits.
that's all. Yeah, that's all I've got.
Thank you, Steven. Thank you,
So-
Master Steven.
and now it's
time for a
for-
break. And
yeah.
right after the break, we're going to listen Christina Aguilera, Oh Mother. Stay tuned. This is the Great American Weekend. Write your comments, ask questions, practice your English. We're here to communicate and to join your discussions.
Hey, what kind of fixins do you like on your hot dog?
Fixins?
Yeah, relish, onions, mustard, ketchup, condiments.
Conda?
No, not that.
Oh, fixins. I love chili dogs.
Learn about American cuisine on the Great American Weekend.
We're back in the studio with my co-hosts, colleagues, and friends, Hasva QT and Master Steve. And we're now ready for the quotes. We're listening to Oh Mother by Christina Aguilera. And I think there isn't a single artist or poet or novelist or whoever there is performing that don't have a single song or a poem or something dedicated to their moms.
It's a very common theme because
Yeah.
in one way or another, everyone has a mother.
Even during the Oscar thing, when they get the Oscar, the first person they say thank you is their parents, their mom. So moms are always there to support us in our achievements. Now let's go with the quotes. So
We've got our regular weekly segment.
Yeah.
Ina MK with the quotes.
ready to go. Mother's love is peace. It need not be acquired. It need not be deserved. Eric Fromm. And Eric Fromm is a American psychologist and writer, original from Germany. And recently I've been reading one of his books, which is called An Art of Loving, I think. Love, if I'm not mistaken. And he describes both mothers and fathers' love and how it is like the mothers when they carry their children in their belly, they love them even before they're born. And what is different about dad's love and mom's love, this is how he describes it. It's like men are a little bit different. They see the child. They get attached to it. They find similarities with their child, and only after that they get more and more attached to their
Really?
children, and they love them more after they have a certain connection with them. So it's different with mother's instinct and father's instinct. It's a little bit different. This is how he describes it.
That's
Yeah.
It's
You
a little
can-
narcissistic of the fathers, isn't it? Like, I'll only love you if you're in my image, in a way. I guess that's like a kind of a godly approach to fatherhood, no?
well, I don't know. I mean, in the just that quote that you shared, mother's love is peace. It need not be acquired. It need not be deserved. Well, and this is, I mean, the Judeo-Christian God, the unconditional love
Yeah.
for humankind, for his own creation. I mean, it sounds very similar.
Right.
So God is peace, God is love.
Yeah. Love is patient, love is kind. So the next one, God could not be everywhere, and therefore he made mothers. Kipling.
Rudyard Kipling, yeah.
And by the way, he has a poem.
Mothers are surrogate gods.
Sort of. By the way,
hear
Rudyard
that, Mom?
Kipling has also a poem dedicated to moms. Maybe if we have time, we can read it on air tonight.
Yeah. I like Kipling. He's good.
Yeah. The poem is called Oh Mother, I think.
And I believe he's still the youngest person to ever win the Nobel Prize for Literature.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, didn't know that. Okay, the next one. We are born of love. Love is our mother. Rumi. So
I love Rumi.
Yeah.
And I love his love poetry as well. It's really quite moving, especially Coleman Barks' translation of his poetry.
I have not read that.
I am sure that if the mothers of various nations could meet, there would be no more wars. E.M. Forster. That's... Why not, Steven?
I don't know. Seems far too idealistic and fluffy for me, but okay.
Because it wouldn't be possible for all mothers of the world meet anyway.
Yeah, there are logistic problems with that to begin with.
Some technical problems. Mothers who work full time, they're the real heroes, said Kate Winslet, the actor. And there's a small a poem thing. You loved me before seeing me. You loved me in all my mistakes. You will love me for what I am. Lafina Lourdurash, if I pronounce it correctly.
Can I tell you what's my favorite song ever by a mother to her son? Ever. It's Lauryn Hill's song, Zion. Have you ever heard the song Zion by Lauryn? Oh my God. It's an acoustic piece. It is so beautiful, and her voice is so beautiful, and she sings with so much love and passion to her son. I highly recommend you guys listen to it.
And the last, thank you, Haswa, for sharing it. Maybe we can hear the song during our show tonight. And there's another quote by the same author, Lufina Lourdurash. She says, she sacrificed her dream to make my dream come true. So it's often, often what happens when our moms do not have the possibility to work or to make career, and they have to stay at home with us to raise us and to take care of us, and that's what they do. They sacrifice their dreams.
Yeah. Well, being a mother is a full-time job.
Yeah.
It is.
Full-time job, lifetime job.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's one that I think is incredibly undervalued these days. I mean, I was reading an article on CNN today about Mother's Day tomorrow and kind of the history of it and everything. And they gave they gave some number at the end of the article, something like all of the work that a mother does is worth $71,000 a year in salary. And I'm thinking,
how did they count
no, you
that?
can't. I mean, First of all, that just rubs me the wrong way because it's this modern idea of putting everything into
Materializing
dollars.
everything, yeah.
I mean, it's priceless, and we undervalue it because we can't monetize it. So just putting that number there kind of offended me. But I mean,
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
motherhood is a full-time job, and it's one that needs to be absolutely respected and honored. Even if there is no money in it, especially because there's no money in it. So, are there any more quotes, or was that the last
We're
one?
done with the quotes.
We're done with the quotes.
Now we can go on with some discussions. If you guys will allow me, I kind of have some certain points about what makes a good mom in my perspective.
You're the mom in our group, so you've got the mic. The mic is hot.
So the mic is hot, and moms are also hot. So
Whoa.
the first
Some
thing,
moms.
some moms. And first thing that comes to my mind that you need to practice with your own child is patience. Because with patience, we're less likely to yell, lose our temper, or say things we might regret, especially when it's crunch time in the mornings and we all need to get out of the door. And that's why patience is the key when it comes to motherhood.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So, I know someone who's a mother of two and of three, rather. Sorry, and she finds it very difficult to maintain her own personal identity, as well as nurturing for and taking care of her kids.
Yeah, right.
And the most difficult thing that she sees and expresses is that there's this frustration that is in herself that gets expressed to her kids without her necessarily wanting to. It's just kind of like something that she can't quite find the time to make time for herself, for her own needs, and then it kind of trickles its way down to her kid. And I wanted to ask you, how do you balance that? How do you create that kind of sense of your own personal identity as a woman first, and then as a mother second? Or is it the reverse? Are you a mother first and a woman second? And if so, what is that? How does that affect you? Sorry to
That's
interrupt
a very good question. Actually, one of the most important things to balance in life when you're a mother, especially at the beginning, you really forget about who you are, who you were before. And this is kind of a new level, a whole new world that you start to experience. And one of my thoughts when I became a mother was like, what was everything that I was experiencing before? I mean, it was just nothing, But it's a really dangerous thing not to get really into this routine of being a mom. And there are, of course, really, really many happy moments that you experience, but also you really need to remember that you're a woman first. Because when you forget taking care of your own self, to finding some time for yourself, being selfish in a healthy way, I have no doubt that also affects your children in a bad way, because you kind of start to blame yourself and also your kids for in this situation, and you forget who you were.
Yeah, so it sounds like self-care is important.
It's very
both for
important.
you and for your
It's very
kid.
important and I always say this, that the number one thing that the parents have to do is to be happy. That's what they have to do for their children first.
No.
If they are happy.
But what do you mean by happiness?
Being content with your life. I mean,
Okay,
sacrificing.
but there's a difference between being content and being happy.
Because when the kids have happy parents, it's number one gift for them, because they have a healthy background. They feel the healthy atmosphere at home. They don't see unhappy parents who complain about things. Even if they don't, the kids are really sensitive. They feel the atmosphere in the house. They feel the atmosphere. They feel the mood their mom's mood, and they're kind of the reflection of their own mom. If mom takes care of herself and finds time for their kids as well, that's the best balance. So it's important to find some time during the week that it's your time. No one is there, not even your parents, even whether it's your friends, or maybe it's something you go to a salon or take care of your do a massage or whatever you feel like doing. Maybe it's a hobby, something. But the kids should know that this is your mom's time. They need to be separate, and then you have a mom back, which is happy and reloaded.
Yeah, self-care time.
Yeah, and ready to go on with new energy.
And also your kids also, I think, learn that they for themselves need to take their own time.
Of course.
To recharge themselves, and you become an example to follow, like someone who respects themselves enough to take care of themselves.
And also later in life, when the kids grow up, you will never tell them, I sacrificed my best years for you, and then they won't feel guilty, and they won't feel that they owe their well, we always owe to our parents, but you don't feel guilty that my mom, she never made a career because she had to take care of myself, or she didn't have time to spend on fun things because she was so dedicated. Kids never say thank you for these things. That's true.
Unless they really have like an impeccable sense of empathy as they grow up and understand what kind of sacrifices that you do. But I think these observations that you just gave, there's another acronym that I would like to say. These are Mommy's WOW.
Yeah.
Mommy's WOW are Mommy's words of wisdom.
And Hasba, by the way, this happens when you become a parent. I mean,
I'm not there yet.
Starting to really appreciate what your parents did for you, what your mom did for you.
I'm very grateful. Very, very grateful, yes.
But still, there is another level of understanding it when you become a parent. So, yeah. And the second thing is that mom should be strong and fueling, just like what we mentioned before, fueling your inner strength and being the rock your child can rely on, become even more important than ever. So if you keep yourself strong, if you work on yourself, that makes your child more comfortable and feel more safe. Another thing is humbleness. We're not infallible, so we shouldn't try to behave like we are. There's nothing worse than letting pride get the best of you. Kids never need to know that kids should know that adults make mistakes too. We can't expect kids to own up to their own mistakes if we never do so to ours. We need to model how to make mistakes, be gracious and humble, and your kids will too. Apologize for your mistakes. This is a hard one. Swallowing your pride and saying you're sorry can be difficult, especially with your own kids, but it's worth it when you think of the example you're setting for your child and the kind of person you want him to be. So that's the next thing. Another thing is empathy, just what you mentioned recently, like 2 minutes ago. The definition of empathy is the ability to understand and even share what other people must be feeling. Responding to your child with empathy makes you wonder why he behaved the way he did instead of launching into full-on discipline mode. Ask why your child is behaving this way. Think of what he must be feeling and put yourself in his shoes.
Or even like, how did you come up with this idea, or how did you think about doing this? So that instead of saying like why, because there's sometimes an accusational part to the question why when you ask why. Mm-hmm. But like, how did you arrive to this thought would be like an invitation to describe their own process. Just not being a parent and observing from being like an outsider.
Because the same thing happens with adults. We often want to be heard when we misbehave, right? So it's no different with children. Then another thing is respect. It's easy to be bossy, sarcastic, or disrespectful to our kids in ways we would never want others to treat them. So why do we do it?
Because we're their parents.
Yeah. Consistent.
Oh my God, you pulled that card. It's like,
And because nobody...
because I said so, kid.
Kid.
Well, I think at a certain point, the kid has to respect you as a parent and not always be asking why and be asking for justification.
It is here where I'd like to quote South Park.
Well, maybe...
Respect my authority.
Well, it's not a justification. It's an explanation. I'm really thankful to my parents because from early childhood, what I remember is that whenever they said no, they would always explain and give me not always, but most of the time, and
but would you listen first?
That's how I learned to listen.
Because they would always give an explanation.
They would explain, and then they say, okay, if you choose this bad thing would happen. If you choose this option, this will be good. Now you're responsible for the results that you get. You choose. And most of the time, I would be afraid to have all this responsibility on my shoulders. So I would think, and I would make the right choice. That's actually how I learned to make choices.
You're lucky to have had that as a parental upbringing. I had explanations, although the explanations were a series of illogical and disconnected reasonings that made logical fallacies a norm. And so my way of thinking was highly expanded by the simple mental exercises of trying to put together pieces of logic that create a decision that were not quite really fitting together. And I think that's what made me ultimately more creative than I would have been had there be just cold mathematical reasoning involved. So I'd like to thank my parents for their illogical reasoning that allowed me to think beyond the boundaries and out of the box.
For presenting to you,
preparing me for the irrational world.
Picture of the world, which forced you to be creative to create your own coherency.
Well, of course.
There you go. I like that. I mean, they basically prepared me for a very irrational world. This is a very irrational world. I mean, the
world is
consuming beyond our bounds and destroying the planet. I mean, yes.
Well, no. So
Segue.
I've been reading this book recently, and it's got some great. It's Free Women, Free Men by Camille Pagula.
Oh wow!
And it's got
free
some
of charge.
Great. It's got some great quotes in it about motherhood and kind of how motherhood is not valued as much as she feels it should be.
Right, Master,
and I shared one the other day on our Facebook, but I just want to read this, and this is from this book. It's society is an artificial construction, a defense against nature's power. Without society, we would be storm-tossed on the barbarous sea that is nature. Society is a system of inherited forms, reducing our humiliating passivity to nature. So, and that's very Nietzschean. But I mean, the idea is that, yes, the world is irrational and chaotic and whatever in its society and logic and families that we use to create,
create culture. Yeah.
To create, society to create protection and survival.
Thank you, Stephen, for reading the quote. And now we're ready for a break. Also, after the advertisement, we're going to listen to Mother by Ayo. And then afterwards, we'll come back with more discussions.
More mother talk.
Oh, there you go. You're in trouble.
And I just drew attention to the license plate.
The license plate that says to Armenia, guys. To Armenia. New York to Armenia.
Maybe you've got a story about this later?
Later? Oh, that's my mother's car.
Later.
But I'll tell you about that later.
Stay tuned. This is the Great American Weekend.
What's the best word in American English?
My all-time favorite word is but I usually refer to it as lovemaking.
Become more fluent in American English and slang.
And we're back.
Welcome back to the Great American Weekend here on Radio Vaughn. I'm Master Steve.
And I am Ina M. MK, and we have Hasva Cutie here.
So Hasva and so QT.
Running back to the studio, discussing motherhood during the breaks. And we're back, and we're ready for news, I think, guys, aren't we?
Are we?
Are we?
Hey, let's get to the news.
Before we get to the news, I had 2 more points to add to mother. What makes a good mother? What makes a good mother? So another one would be love. And that's the most important thing, I think, because, well, if you show love, kids don't need a ton of things, but love is essential. And remind your child you love him just for being who he is. Make sure he knows he doesn't have to do anything to prove it. Just being born is enough to deserve love, right?
I think so. I think you are the love when you are born. So you become a being of love.
And just like I mentioned before, motherhood is like holding up a mirror that can highlight our best and worst selves. So let's work on bringing out the best in us. And now we're ready for news?
Well, no, okay. If we're going to keep on going on with motherhood,
I would love to.
I mean, and this is one of the things that Camille Pagula is a contemporary American.
Could you hold that up for the audience so they can see it? Yeah.
Contemporary American scholar. She's a university professor. She did her PhD, I believe, at Yale University back in the 60s, and was a feminist, but now is sometimes called an anti-feminist because she doesn't. She has a very antagonistic relationship with kind of mainstream feminism. And there are a lot of different reasons for that, and she gets at it. This is Free Men, Free Women. It's a collection of different essays and speeches that she's given from the 90s until today, until about a couple of years ago. And in this, and in a lot of her work, she challenges conceptions of society and of what it is to be female and male, and her grounding to a certain extent comes from Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher, and it's very opposed to what she says is the kind of foundation of a lot of feminist thought, and even, she says, in general, liberal thought in the United States these days, which is a more Rousseauian perspective. Rousseau says, man is born free, but everywhere finds himself in chains. Human beings are born free and as individuals, and everything is great in this state of nature. And
let's go back to nature.
And let's go back to nature. You know, and oppression is a product of society.
Yeah, right.
But that, I mean, in all honesty, if we were to just go
That's
out...
not true. I disagree with you, and I'll jail you for your opinions.
In all honesty, from my perspective,
right?
A Nietzschean perspective, if we were just to go out into the wilderness, how free, how individual, how wonderful would life be?
Having done that for an entire month without a fire and only a tent, fasting for 21 days, I will tell you that your freedom is bound by the laws of your body and by the universe. So if a bear comes by your campsite, and or a poisonous snake, and a snake, not a steak, and or anything else by nature's product, you're basically at the whim of nature, which is free, but is also, it's also...
You're free as long as you can get around necessity.
Exactly.
You got to eat, you got to sleep, you got to have warmth, or you got to have cool if it's too warm. And that's that quote that I read earlier from here. Society is a protection from nature. Nature is, and so she sets up and talks about it. It's a very Nietzschean thing. The chaos of nature and the logic and protection kind of society. And through that lens, she criticizes a lot of modern day politics and feminism and whatever. And one of the things that, and the reason I'm bringing this up today is not only because I'm reading the book currently, but because she has some wonderful things to say about motherhood and about women. And I agree with her, really. And it mirrors and extends some thoughts that I had had on my own. So here's one.
I'm so curious.
She says, girls should be thinking about how they want to structure their future lives.
Mm-hmm.
Do they want children? And if so, when should that be scheduled? With the advantages and disadvantages of each option laid out. Because of the stubborn biological burden of pregnancy and childbirth, these are issues that will always affect women more profoundly than men. Starting a family early has its price for an ambitious young woman, a career hiatus that may be difficult to overcome. On the other hand, the reward of being with one's children in their formative years instead of farming out that fleeting and irreplaceable experience to daycare centers or to nannies has an inherent emotional and perhaps spiritual value that has been lamentedly ignored by second wave feminism, by contemporary feminism.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's, you guys were talking earlier about, well, women give up their dreams to help for their kids, but that's kind of a contemporary. I mean, she talks too about how women's and men's worlds used to be very much separated. There was influence back and forth, but the way that a woman lived her daily life was so much different from the way that a man lived his daily life. And even more so in our modern society over the last 200 years, where the idea of the individual has become so important. Individuals in the upper classes, in the hierarchy, in the top parts of the hierarchy throughout human history have been individuals. But lower classes, the average everyday person, a lot of times they haven't been individuals. So what you guys were talking about earlier with, having to give of yourself and having to have me time, it's a different way of looking at the world and breaking up the world than is typical throughout most of human history. The idea that she comes up with here is, hey, we need to tell women that you have to plan these things out. It's the burden that comes with biology, but that burden of motherhood, of being able to have children, is actually, the lifeblood and the future of the human race. So it's a burden, but also it's the gift of the future.
I would like to say something, Steve. You mentioned before the coming back to nature and being closer to nature. I was trying to recall and remember the name of the movie that I watched, and I finally found the title of it, Captain Fantastic. Have you guys seen that one?
No, I haven't.
It's about a dad who raises his 6 kids in the woods. It's a comedy drama. Yeah. The story centers on a family that is forced by circumstances to reintegrate into society after living in isolation for a decade. So, and there are interesting aspects that the movie touches, because this world that they live in, that the shows in the movie seem so ideal. The nature, away from the society, away from all the boxes that we kind of live in, and
it's
the
a very
boundaries.
Rousseauian picture of nature and humanity.
Yeah, and how this whole ideal world breaks because of the circumstances that they face, needing to go back and face the society, and how these kids are totally not prepared for the real world that they need to face. It's a really good one, so I would recommend you guys to watch it.
What is reality?
Yeah, that's true.
Is reality being out in nature, having to hunt and forage and make your own shelter, or is reality being in society?
It's both. This is what I think the oldest story ever to be recorded on by the written word is the Epic of Gilgamesh. And I was talking about this earlier today with a friend, and how in this story, the prime essence of it is a man of civilization, Gilgamesh, 1/3 divine, 2-part human, who is looking for a partner that is equal to his strength and might. And a hunter goes out into the forest and the wilderness and meets this man Enkidu, the man of nature, who eats with drinks from the pond with the animals, breathes the air from the mountains in nature, and he's completely free in that space. And this hunter comes back to the king Gilgamesh and tells him, I've met the man of your match, the man equal to your might. And what this king does, Gilgamesh does, he sends a harlot with the hunter to seduce this man, Enkidu, the man of nature, out of the natural world and into society. And he spends 7 days and 7 nights with this harlot, and he learns how to comb his hair, cut his beard, drink beer, and he gets seduced into the world of civilization. And so what happens is that the man of civilization and the man of nature meet, they battle, and they see that they're of equal strength. And what happens eventually is that they befriend each other because they see that they're of equal strength. The story goes on. They go into the unknown forest to meet a guy named Humbaba. There's a challenge, and Princess Ishtar throws the leg of a bull down and kills Enkidu, the man of nature, so that the man of civilization must continue into the unknown forest to meet either this evil man or the man who has wisdom, which is kind of meaningful because you have to kind of confront a fear in order to gain meaning.
Yeah.
The oldest story ever written basically outlines how humans have not really changed throughout 3 millennium. As in, there's the longing for equal partnership. There's the difference between man of nature and man of civilization. There's the benefit of going past the fear into the unknown in order to gain something that puts you at a risk, but also gives you potential wisdom. And I think that when you speak about women making a choice and having the ability to plan their motherhood, I think that what it comes down to is the individual as stressed by the way society views it, even though in the past it might not have been. And now with this consistent cultivation of an individualistic perspective of what each person wants to do, I mean, there's importance to it, but I don't think humans have any problem continuing, really. Where our overpopulation was kind of becoming an issue.
Well,
And
yeah,
now
thank you to science and health, medicine, and stuff.
And we're ready for another break. We'll come back with some news, I think, after which we will welcome our guest, wonderful and beautiful mother, Nina Hovnanian. Stay tuned. This is the Great American Weekend.
I would never live in America.
Why not? Didn't you enjoy your time there?
Yeah, why not?
It was good, but it wasn't great.
Because you didn't know us when you were there.
Join Ina MK, Master Steve, and Hasva QT for a great American experience.
Every Saturday on the Great American Weekend.
Welcome back to the Great American Weekend here on Radio Vaughn. I'm Master Steve. I'm sitting here with Ina MK and Hasva QT.
In between.
And now
Between
it is
cycles.
time for our weekly Mueller report update. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
I've got one thing to say. If
More
this makes
Mueller.
any sense to you, then so be it. If not, all the better for you. Attorney General Barr might possibly be held in contempt of Congress.
Thank God.
I'm not going to explain it. If you don't understand that, you're in a better place than I am.
You know what, Master? Mueller report has become kind of like a quote section. It's like, it's always there.
I want more Miller all the time. More Mueller all the time. I mean, I think that it's so interesting to me how much the American government has become much more theater than I ever thought it would have been. I've always thought of it to have been a place where legislature could have potentially passed or some type of progress could have been made. And now I know that it is all theater. It's straight theater.
No, it's become mental illness. Here's my take on it.
Oh,
And I was going to do this.
That is even better.
I was going
That's
to
a
do
better
this. I was going to do this as a Facebook status the other day, but I decided not to. It's all typed up and kind of ready to go. But it's
I'll just say
something
it live on
'cause
air
I
now.
don't know. Yeah, exactly.
Feel free.
I don't know exactly what PTSD is, like post-traumatic stress syndrome, right? But it's you have a traumatic experience, and it messes with your head, and you aren't able to function normally in certain respects after that, right? And Stockholm syndrome, right?
Yeah.
You're that's where you're held captive by somebody,
Attached
and
to.
then you become attached to them, and you start to agree with them, right? Well, I firmly believe now that Washington, D.C., everybody in Washington, D.C., has some strange combination of PTSD and Stockholm syndrome since Trump won the election. They were so unprepared for this. They were so shocked by it. It was so traumatic that they can't get over it. And they can't think logically about anything anymore, especially if it has to do with Trump. But because Trump gets so many ratings, everything ends up having to do with Trump. So Trump is always brought in. So they're always triggered into becoming irrational, and to a certain extent, they're also displaying properties of their captor, so to speak, because they're all using hyperbole and yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
So I agree with your characterization, and I'm curious as to the sources of this, because so now the main question that was involved in the 2016 election was how much there was an influence, how much of an influence was there on the election by outside bad players who utilized a capitalist system of advertising through social media to create fissures or widen fissures that existed inside of already existing discontent and divisiveness in the American society. And so without naming names, it's interesting how it is still readily available for anyone to take out an advertisement about whatever messaging they want, simply because the advertising structure creates the possibility to monetize and an incentive for anyone who has a message to disseminate. And so any bad player has access to this global platform that can target any system, as that was characterized by Cambridge Analytica from Britain, that basically manipulated an entire society, American society.
No, I mean, it wasn't that bad. But in here, honestly,
I mean, it was targeted manipulation.
I'm not sure.
I'm not
Facebook
sure.
is that we have any time? Do we have to go,
no,
or is she just going to shut us down because she's sick and tired?
Oh man,
of
that
this
was
stuff?
so good. This was so good.
Mueller report. Please get away from my life forever.
Oh yeah.
Leave us
The Attorney
alone.
General. Imagine the Attorney General of the entire
This
nation
is the
being
mother's call.
Yeah, I know. It's just like mother's calling.
Okay, guys, we're ready for the break, and also we're gonna listen to "Mama" by Hajanin.
And when we come back,
Hajanin, and after that, we're gonna
We have our
guest.
wonderful guest.
we have our guest Nina Hovnanian,
So make sure
our motherly guest,
you get
our
connected.
wise guest.
And also, you have the opportunity to ask questions, write comments, and learn a lot from this wise woman. The Great American Weekend will be back.
Hello?
Hi, is your refrigerator running?
No, it doesn't have any legs.
Some American jokes just don't work with foreigners. Hey?
We're back in the studio, and we have our lovely guest all ready to share with us her story. Hello, Nina John.
Hi.
How are you doing? Make sure you're sitting comfortable on the red couch. Lean back, relax, and get ready for the questions that we have prepared for you.
Well, the first question I want to ask,
Of
because
course.
this is kind of our Mother's Day episode, right?
Sure
What
is.
are your favorite traditions or memories about Mother's Day in the U.S.?
I just always remember my father taking us out to pick flowers for my mom. My earliest memory is going out and getting azalea bushes to plant. And then he'd make her stay inside the house. We planted all these azalea bushes. And she came out and she was all surprised. and then we would go out for dinner.
Wait, that happened one time?
Well, I think I must have been 5.
Okay.
But every year it was more and more.
Okay.
And
That's
different.
what I was going to. Every year she was still surprised.
Everything. My father was really big on surprising her.
Cool.
So, but Mother's Day was beautiful. And then we lived in northern New Jersey at the time. And then we moved closer to the other cousins and uncles. So Mother's Day we would have the morning thing with the breakfast.
Where in northern New Jersey? I'm from southern New York. That was right on the border, right next to Old Tappan and
Summit, New Jersey?
I know where that is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's near Short Hills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and then we moved down to Monmouth County.
Nice.
And all my aunts and uncles were down there, and lots of cousins. So we would do a big breakfast. My father would make his basturma and eggs, or the sujuk and eggs breakfast, and then we take it in for breakfast in bed.
Yes.
And
We
we'd
used to
be
do the
all
same
excited, and he'd have some kind of surprise for her. And then we'd all gather at either my grandfather's house or at one of the uncles' houses. And it was just pandemonium. Thousands of kids running around, lots of fun. And the mothers sitting around talking, and the dads playing either poker or tavli tournament.
It's so interesting, the characterization of the Armenian American experience by Peter Balakian in the book Black Dog of Fate, and how much there was a ring, like it resonated with me. And when you're speaking now, I can totally remember me and my brothers taking breakfast in bed to my mom and my dad preparing it in the morning. And then as kids, we would have, I don't know what kind of traditions you would have for Mother's Day, but as kids, we would write these coupons for our mother about chores that we would be available to do. So like this is one coupon for washing dishes, or like one coupon for doing the laundry.
That's a great present.
Of course, she never used them because we were already doing that stuff anyway.
Well, that's so cute.
Or I was going to say, or because you were so bad at doing those things that she didn't want you to.
That too.
Well, I just remember
I don't want the kids
Mother's
to do the
Day,
laundry. It'll all turn out pink.
After one of these elaborate breakfasts in bed, my mom got out of bed, went to the kitchen, and she looked and she's like, this is my present. And there's pots and pans and, mess everywhere. And my brother and I looked at each other and like, we'll wash the dishes. She said, no, you won't. Go play.
So Ninja, we had, by the way, Katja is watching her live.
Oh, she is?
So hello, Katja.
Hey,
if you hear us now. And I have a question. Earlier during the show, we were discussing, and I was kind of telling the points of what makes a good mother. So what makes a good mother, in your opinion? What are the qualities?
I don't know. I think that I had the good fortune of having a majorly big life before I settled down to motherhood. I was listening to your earlier conversation. So when I had my kids, it was like the jackpot. I had twins. I was, absolutely in love with them from the moment they were born. And I think that a good mother is ready for motherhood, and she's had a life, and she's ready to devote the next however many years into forming these young people, into good people.
Are you of the philosophy that you are always ready for motherhood, or that do you believe that it's something that you'll know when you are ready? Is it something that you feel like that you'll never be ready, or that you're always ready?
I think that the basis of motherhood comes from love.
Yes.
Okay. So as you're raising your kids, it's like there's like a love bank, and you just keep investing in it. It's like a piggy bank. You just every single hug and kiss. It's just investment. And then
Treasure it.
hopefully when you have your own kids, that's your trust fund. And you just draw from that regardless of when it happens. That's why I say I was fortunate that I had it on the tail, I had them rather late, so I had this huge, I was really ready. But I think I would have been ready at any point.
I love that description of like kind of like treasuring your love into your kids, kind of like putting your love treasures
right
into
Nina's treasures. Yeah.
I mean, in any type of love relationship, whether it's with your partner or especially with I don't have kids, but I see that when you put those love treasures into them, it just grows.
Right. And also trust is a huge important thing because I think there's a lot of parents who are constantly nervous about, oh, what if this, what if that, don't do this, don't do that. And I think that if you give your kids if you instill this trust in them, like, I trust you because I know you're good, they will probably rise to the occasion and do the right thing more often than screwing up.
Taking
I'm
responsibility.
not saying that I didn't screw up. My parents totally gave us a loose rein.
Who didn't screw up, you know?
Oh, boy.
Well, yeah, that's one of the best ways to learn lessons is to make mistakes.
And it also helps, because when you're dealing with issues of, like, for instance, teenage stuff, you have to remember what you went through. Because I don't think anybody's ever had an easy teenage life.
No,
I didn't.
I don't think so.
You did?
I didn't.
I didn't. Everybody,
Well, I think especially when they're teenagers, I think you need to let them make mistakes, but always be there to make sure that they're not the big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, don't
be the helicopter mother.
Don't get arrested.
Yeah.
Don't end up in exactly. Don't get arrested. Don't end up in the emergency room too often.
Right.
You can make some mistakes, but not. Parents have got to maybe try to keep them from being catastrophic.
Yeah, and I think it's important for you to be honest with your kids about your own childhood experiences and stuff, because they think that you're like a saint, okay? You've never done anything wrong.
Yeah.
And they're like, and you're worried that, oh my God, if I did this wrong or if I screw this up. And it's good for them to know that we've all screwed up. We've all done things that are really not so good. But
your kids think you're a saint? How did you pull that off? I need some advice.
Well, I think that their image, because you're constantly telling them yes and no when they're little, they think that you're an all-knowing being. And, Teflon. Nothing has ever happened to you. Mm-hmm. So when you show them that you're just a person like everybody else.
Ninja, sorry.
I think that it takes the pressure off them a little bit.
I know that I've seen you as a really creative woman, besides being a good mother. And I have a question of my own that is really interesting to me. How to discover and support your children's talents and not force them follow your dreams about them.
Well, I was actually having this conversation with another parent. I think every kid has their timeline, their timeline of discovery of what they really want. Mm-hmm. I've tried to put them in this or that, but you just give them a choice of everything and they'll find it. The thing is not to force your opinion and just to let them follow their dream.
So to give them a wide variety of experiences so they know what it is that they have to choose from.
Right. I think that's the best way. It's sort of like Armenians when the baby is cutting the first teeth. They have that Agra Hadig,
the tooth day
and
party.
they have all these profession, symbols, and the kid goes and picks a symbol. It's sort of like that in real life. You know, you just put everything in front of them and let them choose. And you can always change. I've done a million different things that are completely unrelated to one another.
Maybe we
That's
should
a
talk
nice
about
point.
that next.
I know. I have a question about that. Actually, there's one of our staff members asked specifically a question. He wanted to know about your fashion. You used to create these really beautiful dresses, he said, and he remembered these beautifully designed fashion items that you would create.
Yeah.
And he wanted to know if you are still creating them, or if you have stopped. When will you start again?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking myself all the time. Now, I'm constantly creating in my head. I just put that on hold because my dad got sick and somebody needed to step in for him. So, yeah. So I'm just waiting for the right time to get started with something new. It wasn't a very profitable occupation.
It made
here.
an impact, an impression on.
It was beautiful
that does the
stuff.
show with Anya.
Max.
Max, yeah, Max
Oh,
was.
really?
Yeah,
That's
he was
so
very
cool.
impressed. Yeah.
Well, actually, I like to think that I started the idea of actually having fashion created in Armenia. We've got so much talent here.
Very true.
And the capability, we've got golden hands. And it was just an absolute pleasure to just go in every day and say, okay, today we're going to do this, and just go on this journey of creativity and create gorgeous things.
How did you end up here? I mean, of course, you're American Armenian. And so a lot of American Armenians come here to visit. But from New Jersey, you came here and you've stayed.
Yeah.
So what's that story?
Well,
I mean, how did that come about?
I was working in design, my first collection in New York, and I had a seamstress, and I walked in to her studio and I saw someone else wearing one of my designs, and I freaked out. And I said, this is my dress. And she said, yes, but I'm sewing it. And I said, but it's my creation. And I was totally freaked out. That day, Konstantin Orbelian, the maestro from the opera, had just come back from Moscow because he had just relocated there. We went out for dinner, and I was flipping out. And he said, what are you worried about? Come to Moscow. There's great seamstresses there. So I packed up all my fabrics and stuff, and I went to Moscow. And I was working with this Mali Theater Atelier, the Bolshoi, he got me all these great theater seamstresses. And then this was in 1995, and I came down because the Vehapars was being indoctrinated, was being this Karakin the First, who was like my uncle, my father's best friend. And we're sitting around, and he said, what are you doing in Moscow? And I told him, he said, Amot Kezi, you bring that work here. These people need work. So I brought everything down here. And it was all my hand, the handwork and everything was being done here. And I was spending half the year here, half the year in New York. And then they were looking for somebody to run this tourism development thing. They said, you're here anyway. So Dad said, Nina, you do it. Coach Aryan said, yeah, you do it. And I said, okay, but not forever. They said, okay, not forever. And that was it. I moved here. Then I met my husband.
Wait, so let me get this straight. You ended up here from Moscow, basically by divine order.
Yeah.
The Catholicos.
Divine command.
I mean, the Catholicos basically ordered you to come.
Actually, the divine order of shaming you into it's like Amot Kezi, which is like it was like divine guilt.
Story.
Divine guilt.
But it was such a pleasure. And that year we did the first, my parents were sponsoring the first Venice Biennale. And I was coordinating all this stuff with Eddie Balasanyan. And we were spending a lot of time in Venice, and it was really exciting. We raised a lot of money for that whole thing. And that NPAG Center was built on that money.
Oh, wow.
That we raised.
Great.
Oh, fantastic.
So, And it was like being in a candy store. All this great talent, and you can just hang out with these masters, you know, in anything you can think of. Great musicians, great artists, great everything. I was in heaven.
And this coming from somebody who grew up in New York. Well, in New Jersey,
I
but you
still
spent
feel that way.
You spent tons of time in New York.
No, I spent more time in New York than in New Jersey. But definitely, it's still like being in a candy store.
Ninjan, how did America influence who you are today?
The free thinking, definitely. New York to Armenia. Well, my fashion label used to say, New York Yerevan.
Oh, wow. This was, I mean, for a Mother's Day story, this was my mom's car license plate.
Really?
Yeah. So we've got two New Yorkers basically in the house that's got a license plate to
I
Armenia.
love that.
Yeah. And the other one was one Armenia.
Oh, that was your dad's.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And I have another question, if I may. Like a mother to mother, how to balance your own freedom of being a woman, a businesswoman, and raising children. How to not be
you know how they say,
one thing.
oh, you can have it all? That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for being a New Yorker and cussing on air with me. I'm just going to air high five you right now. Boom.
No, you have to, there's compromises. You can't be this fabulous, socialite, whatever, going out every single night, being a businesswoman and raising normal kids. You just can't do it.
But you managed to do so many things. I've witnessed that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've sacrificed a lot of my social life from the point where the kids were very little up until just recently, so that they would sense that I'm always there for them. If I were in New York, I'd probably be out every single night going to 15 different parties.
Yeah.
But I very much gave that up because...
There aren't that many parties.
Yeah. Well, no, there's tons of parties, but I started entertaining at home more because I also wanted to socialize my kids into being...
A community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a community, and also teaching them how to host great parties.
And you do have some great parties.
So it's not, you have to sacrifice something.
I haven't yet had the pleasure for a Nina party, but
you gotta come. But it's funny because when I was just moved to Armenia full time, that show Sex and the City had come out. And I used to joke to my friends in New York. I was like, oh my God, it's like they had a GoPro on your shoulder. The incidences and stuff was really uncanny. And then there was an episode where Sarah Jessica Parker she kept going to baby showers and all this sort of stuff. And she felt like, well, what is this? These people are giving everything up. And it's a natural progression. You do give everything up at least for a while, because you've got to devote a good deal of time to your kids.
Yeah.
So this is what you meant by saying that you need to get ready to be a mother, to give up certain things.
If you're unsatisfied with you as a person, you're going to be a shitty mother.
Mm-hmm.
True. Because you have to be full of love and confidence in yourself, so that you're not a panicky, wacko mom.
I simultaneously appreciate the words of wisdom that you give for self-love, and the cuss words that you use in the really gritty New York kind of way. It's just such music to my ears. You don't understand.
How long have you been here?
6 years.
Okay.
And I still got the New York grit in me somehow.
Oh, that's so good.
I know. I love it.
Never leave it.
I never do.
Keep that inside you.
Nina, you mentioned before about your work at Moscow. Could you tell us about the Golden Mask Award that you got?
well, it was the first year that I moved here. I was married. And Gerham Grigorian, the opera star who had taken over the opera, asked me to do the designs for the Norma costumes. And so I did them, and they did the production at the Bolshoi, and they presented it for the Golden Mask Awards or whatever, and I won one of these things.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great.
But I was pregnant and in New Jersey at the time, so, you know.
Who did you send to collect the award or to
I don't know,
accept
the
the
whole
award?
team was, you know, the whole opera was there. But it was funny because I remember this guy named Ray. He worked for the Moscow Times. He was a journalist. He wrote a review, and I was so I could read it. It was in English. I said, "Oh
Accidents
my God!"
keep happening
I wrote to him,
on air.
Ray, is this because you know me? He said, "No, they were good." No, they were good, Nina. I'm not just, you know.
Ninja, and we wish you a lot of big awards later.
Oh, thank you, John.
And we hope that you will recover your passion of making beautiful stuff.
Oh, thank you. No, it's the passion's there. I just need to, you know,
put it in action.
Yeah.
Takes time.
Thanks.
It does.
Thanks for being with us tonight. Thanks
My
for
pleasure.
coming. Our time is up, as always, too short.
Okay. Well,
and
then next time maybe you could bring this, and we could have a party. A Nina party, and it'll have like a live action.
That would be great. We're like coming to you live from a Nina party.
Does Radio Van have a mobile studio?
Yeah, do we have a
can just
mobile studio possibility?
Pick this up and
we're
going to
get on that.
That would be so much
we
fun.
can think
would be
about
so much
it.
fun.
And by the way, we have a cool idea for June, which we will not reveal right here on air, but we will speak with you about it after the show.
Okay, that sounds good.
Thanks a lot one more time for being with us. It's
welcome.
always a
Thank you, Nina.
pleasure
It was
to
a
enjoy
pleasure.
you speak.
It was a true pleasure.
Beautiful mom, beautiful woman, creative person. Thank you.
Thank you. It was fun.
We're going to come back after our break with some calendar of events. So do not go anywhere.
Okay.
Hello?
Hi, is your refrigerator running?
No, it doesn't have any legs.
Some American jokes just don't work with foreigners.
And we're back in our studio, ready for calendar of events. So here is the program for Yerevan American Corner. Master Steve?
As usual, every Friday at 4 p.m., they've got the debate club with Jim Daly. The topic this week is to be determined, or TBD. If you've ever heard that abbreviation before, TBD, to be determined, or at least they haven't told us yet. Every Monday at 3 p.m., the reading club. So if you enjoy a good story and want to expand your English vocabulary as well as practice your listening and speaking skills, join the Yerevan American Corners Reading Club. Intermediate level of English is required for participation. And then also on Fridays at 3 p.m., there is the Teenage Club. The Yerevan American Corner invites all teenagers to their weekend teenage club to improve their English and learn more about American culture and lifestyle.
Thank you, Stephen. And now I pass the words to Hazva QT with the Russian accent.
I have to correct you. This is not Russian accent. This is movies in English with a Russian accent, because all movies in Yerevan are movies that are shown with English soundtrack and Russian subtitles. So always there is Russian impression on everything, which I must emphasize until it is eradicated, because I really just want the pure soundtrack, not the Russian subtitles.
They're meddling in our movies.
They're meddling everywhere. We are successful.
They couldn't just stop with the elections. They have to get into the
Get
movies.
into the
too.
movies too. I don't understand this. But anyway, listen closely. So
Mueller should look into that.
Mueller, please eradicate all Russian subtitles.
No.
Eradicate all Russian subtitles on English language movies in Yerevan, please.
This
Jeez.
is not happening.
So now, I would like to say, 11th of May until the 15th of May, there is a beautiful film with a very, very, very great big budget that is making lots of money. It's called Avengers Endgame. It will be playing at 2:35 p.m. and 10 p.m. every day. Also, watch The Hustle. I have no idea what it's about, but it plays at 6:35, so enjoy a movie in English with the Russian subtitles.
Thank you, Hasva Cutie. But do you have a nickname for this blog? A special Russian accent nickname?
Movies in English with a Russian accent.
With Hasva Cutie.
Hasva Cutie.
Okay. Now let's move on to music. Opera and Ballet State Theater offers May 14th at 7 p.m. 5 Letters. It's a ballet in one act accompanied by jazz music. May 15th at 7 p.m. Hovnanian in Opera Art concert at Special Event Hall. May 19th at 7 p.m. Guyana Ballet in 3 acts. Also, we have other music events. May 14th at 9 p.m. Ruben Hakhverdian concert with his program This is Yerevan at Mezzo Classic House. May 17th at 9:30 p.m. Felix Khachaturian at Kami Club. Kami Music Club is going to perform with his new music program. I think it's music and R&B. May 18th at 9:30 p.m. Everybody get ready to cheer for Serpuk presenting Armenia at Eurovision Song Contest. There is the contest watching at Kami Music
a viewing
Club.
party?
Yeah,
a viewing party at Kami Club?
Also, there is a festival, May 19th, starting at 10 p.m. There is a Dolma Festival at Zvartnots Historical Cultural Museum Reservation Territory.
Is that ketogenic?
Yes, it
or
is
as
actually.
my friend Mary calls it cutiegenic.
It is cutiegenic if you don't put rice in the meat. In the ground meat. Also, May 19th at 1 p.m., there is a soap bubble event at Northern Avenue, a kid-friendly
Oh, is that where they're going to have those big bubble-making machines, and they're just going to, like, flood the street, the walkway with bubbles, and you just get to go?
I have no clue whether they're going to have this machine, but all the kids have this thing. They blow the balloons all over the place.
Okay.
Sounds like a mesmerizing time that would be better spent not in front of a screen. So take your kids.
Yeah, take your kids.
Get them all soapy and sticky in public.
May 18th, I would like to announce the Museum Night event opening. Well, not opening, just one night event in Yerevan. And also in the framework of this event, there is the...
Yeah, but what is the Museum Night?
Museum Night is a night which opens all the doors of all museums in front of the people in a non-average time.
After hours.
After hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're open, I think, until 9 at night?
No. It's till like 12 midnight.
Oh, really?
I
Till
think.
12 midnight. Oh, that's fantastic. So you could take your family out or take your boyfriend or girlfriend out or your wife
out for
and
a
go
stroll
out
and
for a
hit
stroll
the
and go
museums.
all museums until...
It's
and
a
there
great
are
option.
some other things going on around town in conjunction with that.
Mm-hmm.
One of them that I'm familiar with, because I usually run past it and listen to the great music, is the Spendarian Music School will have their chorus, their folk instrument ensemble, and their jazz orchestra, which is conducted by Dave Geodakian, who will be our guest on the show next week.
Yay.
They'll be playing an outdoor concert for the occasion of Museum Night. It starts at 7 p.m., and it's at the plaza outside of the Spendarian Museum, which is at the corner of Nalbandian and Hovnanian Street.
And we will finish our calendar with clubs. Hugo Bar offers May 12th May 13th, May 17th, and 18th, starting from 8:30 p.m. Various DJs will be playing different sets for the visitors. So if you guys want to go and just dance, chill, and have fun, go ahead and do it. We're done for tonight. We're done for this week. We enjoyed this show. Motherhood is a good thing indeed, isn't it?
Yes, it
Master
is.
and Hasva, thanks.
I'm very thankful for all the mothers out there.
And thanks for being here with me in the studio. Thanks for all your support and kind words and
Thank
all
you.
your questions.
Thank you.
Happy
Ina.
Mother's Day, everyone.
Happy Mother's Day. See you next Saturday.
Keep it real.
Keep it real.